welcome to another episode of the Middleman Podcast with myself, Roy B. And this is episode 6, and today I've got the lovely Elise Howard with me today, an up-and-coming starlet in the spiritual realm, has many, many gifts that we'll get into during the episode. And so I'll, welcome Elise. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you.
Good.
And it's lovely to have you on this podcast. You was really excited when I sent the invite, and so there's a little story around that as well, isn't there? So
it's actually quite an interesting story. I've been getting my psychic downloads for a while that I would be on a podcast, not just one, but I knew that it was coming, and when you messaged me, I was like, oh, there's the first initial one. So, and I always said if I got invited to one, I would do it and give it a go.
Oh, I'm blessed that I got in first. I got in first.
Yeah.
So we met because you booked in a session with me, didn't you? One-on-one spiritual coaching, guidance.
Yeah, which funnily enough I heard of you through a podcast.
That was through, was that Emily's? Or was it
that was Elise.
Elise, another Elise.
Yeah, so another
Elise.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Elise, the podcast I did with Elise when I was being interviewed, that just happened overnight.
Yeah.
That was from Travis, the technician. That was just amazing how this is just flourishing right now. I mean, this time last week, I didn't even have a podcast, and now I've got a podcast, and this is episode 6.
Yeah.
Which I think will be going out Monday. The coming Monday. I don't know what date that is. Might be around the 1st November-ish.
Yeah.
Or the 31st. It might be Halloween, actually. So this
Halloween special.
This will be my Halloween special. Excellent.
Got the red hair.
Perfect person to have on this. Elise is the perfect person to have on the Halloween special because you're a witch.
Yeah.
And a very, very powerful one in the spiritual realms.
And I've got red hair at the moment too. So.
Yeah. So the ones that are watching this, be able to see, but the ones listening, there's so much fire energy within you. You're even looking at your eyes, they're orange almost.
Yeah. It's so funny. The number one thing I get commented on, or people comment on at the moment, is always my eyes. Like everyone's so fascinated with the eyes, but they don't understand that they're like witchy eyes. So
yeah. And myself, with my intuitive abilities, I can tell when people are really gifted because their eyes look different to most people.
Yeah.
So mine can change colours because I've got green eyes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're hazel. Sometimes they're... I was doing a reading once and someone said one of them turned blue. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. But the old souls seem to have these different eyes.
Yeah.
And yours, and in that little arena, a lot of the eyes are quite similar.
Yeah.
But when I met you, I was like, whoa, you've got really different eyes, which...
Yeah. And I have no idea where I got them from because, I look at everyone in my family, in my human life, and I don't have eyes similar to anyone. So I think for me, I always knew that I was just a little bit different in my eyes, even when I'd look in the mirror. And I don't know if you've ever done that thing where you look at one eye for a long period of time.
Oh, yeah.
And you see your true self for a bit, and my eyes just they almost change again. In that form.
Our eyes are our windows to our soul.
Yeah.
So, you can lie with your words, but you can't lie with your eyes.
Yeah, definitely.
So, a little tip for people listening out there, if you want to know if someone's lying, look in their eyes. Just sort of half hear the words and look at what their eyes are doing. Yeah,
and you can always tell if someone's genuine or not with their eyes. Yeah. And I find as well, when you're on your healing journey, you can see who else is also on that conscious level with their eyes. Is such a big thing.
Yeah. And even with physical world modalities, eye patterns are really relevant. As well. So there's people out, iridology and those kind of modalities can show where your body's holding injuries and sickness and disease and stuff like that. So everything our eyes tell us, it's just one element of our body that tells us so much more than we'd realise.
Yeah. Which is funny because I'm wearing that bracelet again with the eye.
Oh, yes.
So we're talking about eyes as well.
Yeah, well,
that's so funny.
That's the evil eye. That's the Greek evil eye warding.
Yeah.
So what was interesting when I had the session with you about a couple of weeks ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was so a lot of the people that I was speaking about when I look in their eyes, I can tell they're quite spiritual, especially the ones who are witches, they tended to be European. Mm-hmm. But with you, you're the Middle Eastern witch, which brings all this fire energy in. And even your street name is it's Mediterranean, which is, there's no such thing as a coincidence. So the fact you're on this Mediterranean named street.
Yes.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah, and that fact that I live by the beach and the sun and yeah.
Yeah, but so you've got this really big fire energy going on. So
yeah. And all my visions in my past lives have always involved fire, which is so, like, to me, is just gobsmacking for me. Like, every vision has involved fire. My eyes have always been that fiery colour. And also a lot of the time comments that people make are like about my character is that I'm quite fiery.
Yeah.
And that I can be a fiery person. I mean, over the years I've calmed down a bit, but yeah, it's just fire seems to be very... So
would you be able to tell one of the stories of a past life you've visited?
My first ever vision was through meditation. And I never really... I wasn't one of those people that, you know, I wasn't like a medium and was able to see visions from an early age. I wasn't like that. I was more so like the more spiritually involved I got, the more visions and the more gifts I was receiving. And the more positive decisions as well, I was getting more visions. But the first one that was, I guess, a bit more of a standout for me is like I'd been told through readings and a bunch of other spiritual people, I would say, that I was a witch as well. But for me, when I knew that I was a witch was when I was in a meditation and it took me to this Middle Eastern place as well. And I was in a tent and there was like fire lit up around the tent and I was walking around it. I must have been at a party or something. And I was in this tent and then I go back out to the party and there's this big, huge fire pit. And I'm dancing around the fire pit. And that's when I knew. I was just like, I have lived many lives before. I know a lot of people say as well that you're not supposed to know about your past life, but all of my visions have been specifically with my past life, and I gather that they're for reasons, but I haven't quite figured them out just yet.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because for me, I'd say go visiting your past life because we leave a lot of our crumbs of who we are in that time.
Yeah.
So, interesting enough, past lives, when you visit a past life, you're technically going in the future.
Yeah, technically.
Which is, that's quantum physics,
so
folding
cool.
time and stuff like that. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
But we do, some of the things that we do in this life are direct reflections of something we've done previously because life lessons, for those that understand the concept of life lessons, a lot of people don't realise is that they actually spend a life lesson can span multiple lives. Mm-hmm. It's not just a life lesson for this life. Mm-hmm. So a common concept, or a concept that's becoming more and more common now, is the one of generational breakers. Yeah. So we're breaking generational patterns.
Yeah.
Well, those started lifetimes ago.
Yeah.
And I truly believe, because as an intuitive healer, that we can't heal anything that's not ours. We can only heal and understand and therefore let go something that we've created. Mm-hmm. So if we're breaking a generational pattern, then there's going to be ourself in a previous life that created that pattern in the first place, which is why then we can break it in this life.
Yeah.
And then that particular pattern spanned, my current working theory is it spans 7 lives from start to finish. Yeah. We're in our 7th life and we're breaking that pattern. Yeah. But those 7 lives aren't concurrent. So we might have had, between that particular starting of that lifetime and this one, we could have had 50 lives. Yeah. But from the original and this one, 5 of those, we carried on that life lesson through. Yeah. Depending, because we might have needed an element of being a man or a woman, or and different kinds of work, or a witch, or a wizard, or anything in between that added into that lesson. That when it came to learn, it brought big elements of ourselves that we're now learning about ourselves in this life to help break that pattern. Definitely. So we can move forward into a greater version of ourselves, be able to hold more light. And help Mother Earth upgrade as well as ourselves. So it's a very, very fascinating concept.
Oh, so fascinating.
And everything evolves. So even the past life stuff is evolving. And all our gifts evolve. So another really interesting thing about your session was we discovered something slightly different with you, that on top of you having all the witch background, we came across something else that you embody and you carry the energy of. What was that?
It was first time knowing this as well. You said that I had gypsy background. Is that what we're talking about?
So gypsy, that comes in with the witch. I'm talking about the jinn.
The jinn. The genie stuff. The jinn. We spoke about the gin. What did you say? You said...
So gin, that's not the alcoholic drink we're talking about. It's spelled D-J-I-A-N. It's basically the old world version of the word genie.
Yes.
So you are basically, you embody the elements and the ability of a genie. So, because so many people understand that people are coming back into their witchy self, I'm coming back into my wizard self. You're the first person I've come across that is embodying the genie.
Yes.
Or the jinn, because the jinn is that's your sort of like the Middle Eastern witch, which is,
Which I am still doing research on to try and figure that out and unravel that. But, because I'm not all that educated on the jinn.
Yeah.
So I'm educated on the witch because that's what everyone speaks about. I feel like a lot of people I encounter are like, oh, I'm a witch or I'm a wizard, but I haven't encountered
so the genie, having genie, because I've got a genie as a spirit guide.
Yes.
Who decided to tag along because I was doing a house clearance many years ago, and he was there opening portals when he shouldn't have been, and was letting other things in that house. So I was able to close the portals down, and I was going to basically get him to leave, and he says, look, can I just work with you instead? So I spoke with my guides in that time, and they okayed it. So I've got my own genie. That's about manifestation, the granting of the 3 wishes. So, but with how it works on the spiritual realm, with it being one of your guides, or with that, actually you having that internal energy of the genie, means that you've got unlimited wishes. But what that'll mean is like it'll just be the way you word things when you manifest.
Yeah.
So you're going to be using the term "I wish," and but as the adage goes, be careful what you wish for. What that means is, so for those that are doing work on manifesting, you've got to be specific.
Yeah.
If you leave gaps, spirit will fill that gap in with a lesson more often than not, or even just some fun. So if you don't go into specifics, so you say, I want a new car, and you don't specify that it's a reliable car, you might end up with a car that's not reliable. That kind of thing.
And I feel like you can accidentally wish for negative things as well. So that's something I found, like, I was like, why do these negative things all keep happening at once? And it was because I was subconsciously just wishing for those negative
it's just like before we got started today, there was all the grass cutting again.
Yes.
Which Trav, the technician, will know that because that happened when we were doing it, and then he had to go off, get a SD card, and came back, it all gone quiet.
Yeah.
It's all gone quiet now.
But
it's that manifesting. But when we manifest everything. Our thoughts create our reality, our wishes create our reality. And with that, manifesting, it's not necessarily a negative or a positive thing, it's just what we focus on. We manifest what we focus on, so for those listening, be careful what you focus on, because that's what you're wanting. That's how the universe sees things. You're focusing on that, you're happy about that, you're thinking about it all the time, so you clearly want more of it, so they bring more of it. That's how it works. So it's not about negative or positive, it's just about focus.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's hear a bit about your backstory, from growing up and how your spiritual journey evolved into your life.
That's a really good question, actually, because not many people know this about me, but I grew up in like a Christian home, and it was like really suppressed. And
are you from Australia originally? Or?
Yes, from Adelaide, small town, and I just grew up there my whole life, and I had parents that fought a lot. I won't go into that too much. But for me, I just grew up in a Christian home, and I felt a lot of pressure and beliefs been pushed on me from really, really young. But from the age of about, I would say, 12, like I had a difficult relationship with my father. But as I got to 12 years old, I just had this fascination with getting readings done. and it was like I was drawn to it by 12. And I remember when I got my first phone at 12, my mum was paying for my like plan at the time, and I was phoning like landlines for for psychics. I'll admit this. I can't believe I'm going to admit this on a podcast, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I was phoning psychics, and from 12 years old, and I'd be paying for it, and my mum was paying for it. She couldn't understand like why I would keep getting up to my bill and it would be cutting me off before the month ended. And little did she know, like, because obviously I wasn't comfortable to tell my parents that I was into that, because I felt like, you know, that would be shunned in that environment. So I never told them, but I was always phoning psychics. And
what was you asking them?
It was always got to do with love, funnily enough. I know I sound like such a corny person, but it always had to do with love.
But interesting enough, quickly on that point, I briefly worked on the psychic hotlines, and that's all people wanted to know. And it's just like, I've got bigger gifts than this, and it was just a case of like, oh, what does this person think of me? What does that person think of me? And what? Yeah. And spiritually, sometimes that's none of your business. That's actually crossing people's spiritual boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's why I couldn't do that for more than about 3 weeks, because I was encroaching on people's boundaries spiritually, and that was going against my integrity, and it just felt wrong. So when I help people, you have to have permission from that person. The way I sometimes term it is like a door-to-door salesman. If you don't let us in the house, we don't get the information.
Yes. Yeah.
So even today, I've got your permission to talk about all these things.
Yes.
So any intuitive guidance that comes during this podcast and this episode, I'll get the download of. Yeah, and vice versa. So carry on.
So psychic hotlines. I would call them up all the time. And then I remember I was buying crystals like really young, like when I was like 16, whatever.
What was your first ever crystal?
It would have been the amethyst crystal. Yeah. So, of course, yeah. My third eye has always been really open as well, because it's funny because I would always phone psychics and wish I could be intuitive like them. But I didn't notice from a really young age. I was predicting things before they were happening for quite young. And one specifically would have been when I was dating someone at the time. I think I was like 18. And he was into AFL, because in Adelaide that's what you watch, and he was into AFL, and it was like 1 minute till like the thing was going to end, and they were like 1 point out, and I said to him, you wait, they're going to score. And he goes, it's 1 minute, they're not going to score. And I just knew I had this intuitive channeled message that it was going to happen, and it happened. And he goes, how the hell did you know that? And I didn't notice at the time that was my higher self kind of just downloaded all of that and knew that was going to happen. Yeah. But the more you do it along that journey, the more you understand when it's your intuition and your higher self, or when it's just you acting on emotion as well. Like sometimes I go and act on emotion and it doesn't come true. Yeah. And I know why, because it can feel that energy is different compared to when I'm in my higher vibe self. Yeah.
So for those listening that have those either emotional and still question their intuition, and figuring out what's intuition and what isn't. Yeah. Those real strong intuitive, your whole body feels it.
Yes.
And interesting enough, like for me, when I get stuff downloaded or a drop in, so my download is different to a drop in. Yeah. My drop in, it's like I can almost see this little energy ball and feel this little energy ball just above, it's actually here. Yeah. And it drops into my head. Yep. And that's when I know it's like pure intuition or dropping in from spirit. Because it starts from outside of me. It's fascinating. Whereas your inner thoughts and your overthinking mind, it's that chatter in your mind that, it's...
Sometimes I get it's like a thought, like it's almost like a light bulb moment in your brain. It's like a light bulb, bing, here's an answer, or here's something. Like even like in relationships, like I always knew before because I've always been cheated on, so I always knew when someone was cheating on me because it was like a thought. They never showed me any signs of it, but it would always just be an intuitive like thought in my brain, like a light bulb switch, boom. And then
so what that would come from is as soon as we connect to people, you have this energetic cord between you and that person. It starts off as a thin piece of string, and the more energy that flows back and forth along it, the bigger it gets.
Yeah.
It's like a road, really. The more it gets used, the bigger it has to be.
Yep.
So when they were doing what they were doing, you can't. The thing is, with that energetic cord, you can't stop energy flowing down it.
No.
So your thoughts are energy. Everything we do is energy. So as soon as that person would have felt guilty or tried to sneak around, that energy is coming down to your cord. That because you're intuitive and receptive, it goes through your intuitive energy system that then translates it into the correct words, and basically translates that. Yeah. It's a bit like a telephone. The telephone, well, in the olden days, not so much now, but when we used the landlines, you'd speak into the speaker, it would turn into an electrical signal, go down the cable, come up the other end, and be translated back to sound again.
Yep. So, I also find as well, like for maybe your listeners listening as well, is like that gut intuition is always that first instinct. The moment you start eating better and like drinking better, that it's no longer just in your pit of your gut. It's like kind of all around you, and your gifts are all different.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good point. The intuitive gifts evolve and they do become. So, you can have clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance. Most one people know about is clairvoyance. Clairsentience is clear feeling. Claircognizance, which is clear knowing. Clairalience, which is clear smelling. So for those that go, I can smell my grandma's tobacco around it, or my granddad's tobacco around, that's because he's probably literally, or your grandma's perfume, that means they're literally in the room.
Yeah, had that
before. And so I'm getting tingles for that.
Yeah,
so that's correct. So it's interesting because I'm the medium. So which is why I used the word. That's why I got the name the middleman, because I'm a medium. But Roy B, the medium, didn't quite flow like the middleman.
Yeah, the middleman works well.
Yeah, it works well. Yeah, so many people say, "Oh, that sounds so good." So so our intuitive gifts evolve, and as they evolve, we can differentiate between them much easier, and they've all got their own skills and abilities, but they all blend together as one. So definitely. After like 18, where did you go from there?
18 I went off like after that, because my parents had divorced completely. Like they were split at 16, but they divorced around 18. So I went through year 11 and 12, the most crucial years of my life, having my parents split, which was really, really hard on me. And both of them kind of had their own way of going about it. And so I kind of just went a bit off track. I went to dating boys and dating the wrong people. So I'll openly admit that on a podcast again. I'll just be completely transparent.
This is I might call this episode the opening heart of Elise. She's like sharing.
Yeah, well, I did say to myself, I'll be honest, because like I think if you don't talk about it, you need to, and yeah, there's a lot that's happened on my specific journey from 18 to maybe about 23, where I went through like a lot of trauma, not only just with my parents splitting up and also childhood, and I got bullied in school. I never quite fitted in anywhere. Like I never felt like I quite belonged anywhere.
Yeah, and
struggled to make friends.
Yeah, so for those listening who are very spiritual, you'll definitely know this journey.
We all know.
It will all sound very familiar.
Yeah, we've all been there.
I was the same. I didn't fit in. I was bullied. I was, all those things. My parents, I didn't do the parents split up thing, but a couple of my brothers and sisters divorced. Yeah. Not that was directly, but, that energy was... I went through my own divorce, but my parents were together until my mum passed. Yeah. And they were together 65 years, so... Wow. Yeah. A long time. But I still did that lonely, didn't really fit in with anybody, including my family. And because we're doing our own journey. Yeah. And we're figuring things out, and we have to, when you're a healer, you have to live through stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for me during that period, I think a lot of not so great things happened to me, and I did a lot of not so great things as well. Which I've learnt through therapy to own up and talk about and be a bit more comfortable talking about that uncomfortable stuff.
Yeah, and they interesting enough, those are the things that inherently hold lessons for us. And if we go back to the past life stuff, when you visit past life stuff, and I've done this journey myself, sometimes I visit past life stuff and gone, oh wow, because the divorce I had, I visited past life, and we'd been together in a previous life, and there was a lot of stuff going on back then, and it's just like I was just repairing it lifetimes and lifetimes. But it just meant she was such a powerful teacher for my journey that on the soul contract level, we both signed up for that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm going to create all this trauma within you, so it gives you the most powerful healing journey, because you'll have all these things to look into, you'll have all these things to grow from. Yeah. So that's exactly what's been happening with yourself.
Definitely.
So to me, trauma, I'm a little bit averse to use that word, because it's a lesson, it's a teaching. Trauma is a teaching.
It's a good way to look at it as well. I think I learnt through therapy and also, just like in my own spiritual journey that, like, you've got to speak about your trauma, because if you don't speak about it, it becomes more of the trauma rules you don't learn from the trauma. And like even just recently, I had something come up where I watched a movie and I was triggered by what happened to this girl, and I noticed that trigger response, and I look at that and I go, now I understand that I can't just go, oh, okay, need to go meditate. I also need to work through the trauma and break through it, so then I can, it becomes a memory, not something that rules me, I guess.
Yeah, so in regards to that, so for those listening that have got trauma stuff going on, there's a lesson within it that's going to help you really grow massively and really powerfully as well. So, you know, that it's that digging, it's that going within, finding that core element that you asked for on the soul contract. We ask for everything that we're going to go through in life to teach us and to help us grow as a soul.
And not being scared of it as well. I think that was what was triggering in me for a long time, is being scared of it, being scared to talk about it, being scared that no one would believe. You know, the list goes on. Everyone has their own. Own.
And I'm not trying to lessen what you've gone through either. That's not the point at all. And you know, everything that we go through is personal to us and powerful to us. So just because, for those watching, you know, don't look at someone else and think they've gone through worse stuff. You know, own what you've gone through and honour what you've gone through at the level you've gone through it. You know, because some people might be just as much affected having a car accident to someone that's gone through some really heavy stuff that society, you know, the physical attacks and things like that. It depends how you hold it in your body. Yeah. And that's what you honour. And
love yourself through it too. Which is the hardest part.
Well, look, loving ourselves in general is challenging because we're raised not to do that.
Yeah, we've been taught the opposite.
Yeah. But that is changing. I'm noticing that is massively changing because so many people are starting that personal development and that inner healing journey, which is fantastic, which is helping Mother Earth upgrade and move into a different vibration and be a high vibration, which in the long run will massively help the planet be more at peace and be more loving and have a lot less crime and violence within it. So it's a process that's happening quite rapidly right now. So now we're into your middle 20s.
Yes.
What level were your gifts then at that stage?
I was very out of touch with myself. Like I was drinking, I was all sorts. So I was very out of touch with myself. I had a lot of things happen to me, and like I said, I did a few bad things myself.
So for those listening, alcohol or alcohol,
it's not
if you go to the etymology, it means evil spirits.
Yes, yeah. And I was also like around a lot of not so good people too. Yeah. And befriending not so good people because I wanted to fit in, you know. And anyway, I think it got to about 23. And I had an incident where I was like blackout drunk, don't remember what happened, kind of drunk. I mean, I got home safe, whatever, but I woke up the next day and I realized I didn't remember from point B to this point, right? And it was a long period of time. It's like, how did I get home? I don't remember how I got home. You know, luckily I was safe, whatever. But I think I realized at that point I can't do this anymore. And I need to look after myself. And it was becoming a vicious cycle that I was continuously making. And I could see the repetitiveness, and the lesson was the same every time. And then I just got to a point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was just right before, maybe like a year before COVID happened. And yeah, I just realized I was like, I need to learn my lesson, and I went completely cold turkey, just stopped drinking, like just not even one drip of alcohol, nothing.
Yeah.
And like I didn't touch drugs either, and I just went completely just off. And I'm very lucky like that. I don't have addictive personality, so I could cut off like that. I just make a decision and I just do it.
Yeah. That's actually born out of the inherent power within you.
Yes.
So for those spiritual people out there that are able to do that as well, it just shows that you're powerful.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same.
Yeah.
Like, if I just give something up, I'm like, right, done it.
Yeah.
You know, because I did an NLP course recently where when we do submodalities, I just chose Cadbury's because I wanted to eat less bad sugar.
Yeah.
And what it actually did was kill all sugar.
Wow.
Changed my whole diet. I haven't had chocolate since.
Wow.
Bar. I mean, cacao's fine because that's natural. And
that's different.
And I had a coffee the other day and it came in one of those little squares of chocolate.
Yeah.
So, you know, that little thing. But no, I haven't.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, because then the habit built up, go to a shop, I'm not even noticing the chocolate on the aisle or in the things. I'm not even looking at them.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
It's very interesting because, like, when I made that split decision, like, I was in, it was just right before I dated my last boyfriend in Adelaide, and I was with him for like a year, and I was like sober, and he would go out and party and stuff. I found it really difficult, like being around someone that was like, you know, I'm wanting to settle down, and this person's just wanting to go out and party all the time. And I realized that my intuition, like, was really onto that relationship. I didn't realize until maybe since I've moved here. Like, I've had a lot of realizations and flashbacks since, but I think when I went completely cold turkey, like, I could predict things really quickly. I could anticipate where things were going to go. Like, I knew where that relationship was going to go.
Yeah.
I could see the downfall of it. I could see the cracks. I just saw things for what they were. And I'd get a lot of
you could tell when you're going to be
intuition that I was ignoring at the time. So my gifts were like there, but I would ignore.
Yeah,
and I'd be like, I don't want to listen to it. Ignore that. Even though, like, I was, you know, trying to be done with the partying and whatnot. And then, then it got to COVID, and my lease was up in like 3 weeks, and we were in COVID lockdown, and I was living with my ex at the time because I didn't want to kick him out. And I was like, oh, look, you can stay here, and I think I'm just going to sign on the lease. And then I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to move to the Gold Coast. So this is how, like, how this is like the
and so many of us spiritual people have been drawn to the Gold Coast. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I know people looking to move up here right now.
Yeah. It was a big moment. I always wanted to move. But at the time, I only had a friend in Brisbane. Anyway, so I knew that I needed to move. I wanted to be where the weather was warmer. I was gone and broken up, and I was like, you know what? I want to be free. Like, I want to be free. I just knew Adelaide wasn't for me anymore. I didn't feel like I fitted in. Like, I just felt like that place was pushing me down. At that time, like, now when I go back, I'm totally at peace with it. But, I just knew that it was it was time to move. So 3 weeks till my lease ending, I packed up all of my things, sold everything in my house, told my ex, you're going to have to find somewhere else, because it was my place at the time. And I just managed to get my dog with me, and I left. I fled. And at that point, I was very vulnerable. I was not in a state where I could work because I was going through a breakup as well. And, you know, COVID, like, moving during COVID cost me a lot of money. So I was under a lot of financial stress, but I was just not fit to work.
Yeah.
If I worked for someone at that point, I think I would have been a horrible worker. I think they would have fired me. But, and then anyway, eventually I had some issues happening with the place I was living in Brisbane, and I was like, like I said to my mum, I'm like, I'll try Gold Coast, but if I don't like it, I'm going to come back home to Adelaide. So, like, Gold Coast was sort of like where I was like, we'll see how it goes, and if it goes well, then I'll stay. If not, I'm going to go back. And it's been 2 years now. But since when I moved here, I think it's a lot easier for me personally. I don't know what it's like for other people, but it's a lot easier to make positive decisions when you remove yourself from situations. And I completely removed myself. Like I stopped using my social media because I wasn't seeking external validation anymore. I was a lot wiser with friends that I made, and I was a lot more...
Yeah. I understand that, because like normally at the end of the podcast I put people's social media links so they can get in touch, and you don't really have a social media presence, so apart from a very limited Instagram.
Yeah. Which actually, by the way, like I am going to go through rebranding my Instagram eventually. It's just one of those things, it's just when it feels right.
Yes, yeah, well...
I'll take it off of private soon, and I will also probably start to advertise my own stuff. But at the moment, I'm quite happy to be off grid when it comes to social media. So
in regards to all your gifts and intuitive gifts, where do you feel you'll start to help others? What kind of gift will you use? What techniques?
For my gifts, I think mine's more so thought and visions, because I've had a lot of visions since I've moved here. Is that what we're...
Yeah, so it's like when I started doing readings for people at 18. That's where I started. That was my spiritual gateway drug, doing readings for people, but then it became spiritual counselling, spiritual coaching, and then mediumship, and then the medical intuitive stuff came in as well. Yeah.
So for me, I think I bought my first tarot deck when I first moved to the Gold Coast, so that was 2 years ago. It's a very baby journey, but I bought my first deck, and it was like a black deck, very dark pictures.
Yeah, all that witchy stuff you see.
All the witchy stuff.
The shadow realm.
Yeah, and I used it, and I gave, I think one of my good friends that I've known since I was 13, I gave Billy a reading, and I gave a couple of people back home in Adelaide a reading, because I was posting like videos of me giving myself readings.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah, definitely start there.
Yeah, so I'd always given myself readings, but I never gave anyone else a reading. And
for those listening, if you have got a deck that you feel has kind of got a darker energy to it, as long as you're using that for the positive and you're using it to help people, that's okay. Yeah. Because we're in a universe of duality. Yeah. Dark versus light. Yeah. And your power, like, we have to visit our shadow. Yes. To unleash our power, unlock our gifts. Yeah. So it's necessary to delve into the dark. As long as you're not, so with your inherent gifts of the genie, if you're wishing bad of others, you'll get a lesson for that.
Yeah, and I think it was a little bit too dark for me at the time, because I noticed I was in my ego a lot, and I was in that dark space. So it's actually quite funny, because then my second tarot deck was given to me by my good friend Harry, and that was an Egyptian deck.
Oh, yeah.
And I, at the time, had a phone cover with the Egyptian stuff at the back, and it was just like, it was pretty cool. But I found with that tarot deck, I was struggling to read it and channel messages from it. But I still have it, because I know one day I'll be ready for it.
Yeah. And we often get given things that we don't use for years and years later.
Yes, and I know it's for a purpose, but I just know that I'm not quite in touch with it yet. And so I've probably used it a handful of times, but I'll always keep it, because he's just a really good friend of mine, and I knew he gave it to me for a reason.
Yeah, that will come when I mentor you. That's when it'll come.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'll be able to use it and channel messages off of it a bit better.
Because I've been working with the Egyptian guides for, like, even on the way here, so I always create the space wherever I go, even when podcasting or doing readings or coaching, that kind of thing. So I called in all the Egyptians. Ra, I mainly work with, and Anubis, those two. Thoth is always around me a lot as well, and Isis. So, but yeah,
I've got Horus on my cards, and Isis as well.
So the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Ra. Yeah. Which is So the Egyptian eye, it actually faces two ways. If you're not aware, anybody that's not aware of that, there's two different eyes. So when it faces one way, it's the Eye of Horus, and when it faces the other, it's the Eye of Ra. Yeah. You can easily internet search that. Yeah. So I've got that one. So it's a pretty cool one. I like it, but I haven't felt called to use it very much. And when you start working with the Egyptian guides, it's powerful energy, but it's so light. Yeah. You know, it's all about deep wisdom, and I love working with them. Yeah. I've always been pulled to Egyptian, like, artwork and stuff. Like,
I've watched Ancient Civilizations on Gaia as well, so...
Well, you would have had that Middle Eastern life, that Middle Eastern witch, that genie. It's all that area. The Middle East is the area of the genie or the jinn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's when your power really start ramping up, because they'll be your guides for your genie self.
Yeah, which is exciting because I can feel that myself is hungry for it. Just I don't know how to control my gifts, because I've gotten to a point now, even like when I pull out a tarot deck, like I've gave my sister was the last person I've given a reading apart from on myself. And that was maybe about 2 months ago, and everything that was in that reading she said came true, and she was just gobsmacked by what happened and unraveled for her. And I said to her, just don't forget what your guides are telling you.
Yeah.
And it's up to you if you want to do that. Like, because the reading ended in like advice from her guides.
Yeah, and readings are always guidance. As accurate as they can be,
yeah,
it's still guidance.
Yeah.
We still have that choice to follow that or not.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're accurate, so it's recommended that you follow it, because we're there to help.
And you have a choice, because otherwise you're just going to keep... The readings are good, I find, because they help you know what you need to know, or give you confirmation or closure on certain things. And then you've got that piece of advice. But if you don't want to follow it, well, guess what? The same lessons are just going to keep coming up.
And in some of the readings I do get, people say, well, I already knew that. I'm like, it's confirmation. But I then go on to say, well, if you knew that, why are you here? Yeah. Because, it's one thing knowing it, and it's another thing walking. Mm-hmm. So it's that old adage. It's one thing knowing the path, and it's another thing walking the path. As Morpheus said in the Matrix, knowing the path is one thing, knowing what you've got to do, but then actually taking action to do it, and that's often where readers come in, because we confirm it in such a way that makes you go, okay, I knew that, but I kind of didn't know that because I wasn't listening to it. Yeah. And we're an external validation for you to go and take action and follow whatever that guidance was. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think as well, like with my gifts, because obviously I'm still so early on in my journey, and I'm not one of those people that have had those gifts from early ages, like since you were little.
Well, you would have been born, definitely. You would have been born gifted. You just did the journey of not being aware until later on. Yeah, and myself, I was born gifted, and I've always kind of known.
Yeah, I think I've always known, but I've always just been scared, because I also found, like, at one point I reached my highest self I was meditating like 3 times a day. I wasn't working much, and so I was meditating all the time, and I was just in this high state, and I would be seeing people, I would be feeling people's energies, seeing auras around people, all sorts, and it was just really full on. And it was at one point when I realized I had absolutely no control over these gifts was when I had a client come in, obviously because I cut hair, so I had a client come in, and he had just recovered from COVID, and as soon as he came in, my chest was just tight.
Yeah.
Like, it was so tight. Like, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Yeah. And I just said to him, I said, is your chest tight? Are you okay? He goes, oh, yeah, I just had COVID and I'm recovering. How did you know that? And he's not into all of that stuff. And I said, oh, I just had a feeling. Like,
so
that's when I knew that I didn't have control, because I could see that.
Yeah, so that's the energy intuitive side. Yeah. So, that takes practice to be able to take that on board, transmute it, and give them the guidance around that. Because as healers, we're there to transmute energy. Yeah. And that feeling for him would have been powerful energy, and with the right ability or with the right knowledge of how to utilise that ability, you would have been able to just transmute that energy and make him feel at peace. Yeah. So he didn't have to carry it anymore, because that meant it works that way because he was ready to release it. Yeah. Yeah. So, if no one's ready to release it, we're not allowed to take them off, and it comes back to that permission again. Because again, everything's a lesson. Yeah. So that might have been a lesson for him to not, for whatever, I don't really want to talk about
lesson. That. Yeah, it was also a lesson for me to learn how to close off. Yeah. By not tapping into other people, and also learning when to open and close my own energy, because
boundaries are important.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've obviously still learning.
Currently, you're going to come across so many people.
And I also I'm around a lot of low vibe a lot, and so I do struggle to maintain being, because I'm in the the early stages of my journey, and when I'm at that high energy, when I'm around the low energy 50% of the time, I struggle to remain in that high if I'm around the low.
Yeah.
And I do also understand what must come up must go down, and I understand that sort of side of it.
So what that's about for yourself is, because you're so powerful, you're still allowing the not so powerful to bring you down.
Yeah, and I noticed that.
What it's teaching you is how to stay powerful regardless of who's around you. So what that means is you then lift them up.
Yeah, and I've actually, it's funny you say that, because I've also been around that low like vibe people, and when they comment on my eyes, or they know that I do tarot, or they know that I'm spiritually like gifted and things like that, people all of a sudden go, oh, I went to the sound healing, like I know that you love sound healing, it was so much fun. Or they, you know, my sister is now on her own journey.
Going to sound healings, going to crystal, going to all these different events, because there's so many more of us running these events now.
Yeah, and I noticed the moment I start being more comfortable talking about and remaining in my power and in my truth, I noticed like people like my sister, or, you know, even like people that I'm working with now at the moment.
I've found on my journey, the more I talk about what I am, because it's not what I do, it's what I am.
Yeah.
I was born that way, I can't turn it off, so I've embraced it, and I embrace it fully. That whoever I talk to about it, just fascinated, and it doesn't matter how much of a non-believer they are.
Yeah.
They're going, oh, it's almost like you can see it in them. Tell me more. This is fascinating.
And it's just like, if I find it funny as well, because you got those people who are skeptical, but I'm like, if you believe that like people are old souls, then some part of you believes that it must be somewhat true. And there's that feeling of, oh, I felt that energy in the room. Well, you can't deny energy. So if you feel in a certain energy, then it's true.
Yeah, and it's just that's what I mean. It's just a level of belief. Like we've got these abilities that are natural to us, and not everybody has that natural ability. Yeah. So that's why they find it hard to believe, because they're trying to use a logical mind to comprehend something that's just not logical.
Yeah.
Because they're using their physical world senses, and the eyes can't necessarily see what we're saying. But if we do it in the right way, their whole body will feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know, especially like when we're talking about stuff and the truth hits, you just see their whole body. The hairs go on the end, the tingles, and you just see it, and you see in their eyes kind of wobble a little bit. It's as though they're trying to deny what you've just told them, because it's their habit to deny that deep inner truth, but they just can't, because their body's going, this is true.
Yeah.
And it's funny to watch sometimes, because you see this little bit of inner conflict that lasts a couple of seconds, and then they just nod their head and go, yeah, all right, you're right.
Yeah.
But that's only the really stubborn ones, so, you know.
It's funny as well, because the more because I went through, obviously, my period of denying my gifts and stuff, and being spiritual and too scared to just remaining in the dark.
You was raised in a
but the more you're in
religious environment, so I mean, my parents, my family were Church of England, which basically means you go to church for christenings, weddings, and funerals, and do what the hell you like. That was basically, I think, Henry VIII come up with the Church of England because he couldn't divorce his wives. Wow. And the Pope at the time was saying, well, you can't divorce your wife, so he came up with his own religion and basically gave the middle finger up to the Pope and the Catholic Church. Yeah. And that's what the Church of England is. So it's like, do what you like, as long as you've got faith. What's it matter?
Yeah, and I find the more you fight against it, the more it tries to show itself.
Yeah, because because the thing is, when you're fighting against your intuitive abilities, you're fighting against a power that's far stronger than you are on a human physiological level. Yeah. And you're just going to get tired out and lose to it anyway. Yeah. So you may as well just embrace it and embrace it in each step.
And this is the thing as well, like my guides just recently, maybe about like 4 weeks ago or whatever, removed, like literally if you don't leave something that's no longer serving you, they will remove it for you. Yeah. And they actually did that to me about 4 weeks ago. They're like, right, we've been showing you time and time again that this job is just not for you. We're now going to remove it from you. Yeah. Yeah. And there was no choice but for me to leave. And I knew it was my grandmother at the time, because I associate 444 with my grandmother, which is another story in itself.
Numbers. So 444, and those that know about the angel numbers book, 44 basically says something along the lines of you're lovingly and supported and guided and surrounded by the angels.
Yes. Yeah, and I've also seen 444 in thought of my grandmother, and I've seen 444 when I almost had a car, like crashed into the back of a car, and then the car moved into another lane, 444, and I knew my grandmother was with me, because the moment I would say her name, I could feel her presence in the car.
I love how the angels talk to us through, because their frequency, they do talk to us through numbers a lot.
Yeah, they do.
So on the way here, when I started calling in my spirit team, which includes quite a few ascending masters, the car on the left of me that came on the inside of me, its number plate was 333. So for those looking at the angel number book, 333 basically says you're surrounded by one or more of the ascending masters who's currently guiding you. So that was the ascending master confirmation. Then literally on the other side, honestly, this was within 2 seconds of me calling in Jesus, because he's a healer guide of mine. This car comes past me, and on the back of it, and there will be a picture of this because I took a picture to prove this, that it came past me, and it was like, I think it was the car was called 12 Baskets, and there was a picture of a basket and a fish, and I just cracked out laughing. Absolutely, because I've got this we've got a quite comical relationship, me and Jesus, but I just called him in, and then this car comes past. You know, you can't make this stuff up.
No, and
I had to take a picture.
There's even been times when, like for me personally, when my guides are sending me messages, and it's to the point where they can be very comical as well. So they can be quite humorous and funny when they want to be.
And they talk to us in many different ways. So whether you can hear it or not, in the sound, there's some music come on in the background that's just got loud. And bearing in mind, I've put a cone of silence over us. The fact that it's got loud and it's got louder, it will keep getting louder until we stop and listen to what the song is, because it will be relevant. Yeah, see, look at that.
See?
That spirit having fun. Yeah, let's listen to the song, and as soon as we go silent, the song goes on. Like,
and that's the thing, like that's not a coincidence. And now it's playing again, so it's just like it's not a coincidence, is it?
Yeah.
What's it say?
I'm not sure what it says. I don't recognise it. I mean, I'm not a massive music.
It's really old school.
Yeah.
And it's funny because not often is music playing in this area.
Yeah. So this is just saying, so like spirit talk to us in many ways. So if you hear a song and it's getting louder, listen to the lyrics. Use Shazam, find out what song it is, read the lyrics, and see what that's speaking to you. It could be someone who's it could be a passed on family member that's speaking to you. It could be a guide that's speaking to you. It could even be a heads up of something that's coming.
Actually, I was just talking about my grandma.
Yeah.
And this is a real old school song
there you go.
as well.
So grandma pops up. Was she musically minded?
Yeah, I think she used to love her music from memory.
Okay, cool. Yeah. How is the 444 relevant with your grandma?
I think for me, like, the reason why I think of my grandmother and 444 and I associate it the same is because whenever I've for instance, have smelt her perfume, I would see that number.
Did she used to wear a bracelet or something, or a bangle?
Yeah, I've got the bangle in here.
Okay. See, I didn't actually know that.
How did you know that? She's got two, and I have both of them.
Yeah. Okay. So she's with us right now. So basically, what happened as soon as we're talking about her grandma, she's come in, and I felt this pain around my wrist. And then I just tune into what that pain is, and I'm like, it's a bangle or a bracelet.
I've got two of them.
Yeah. So that's confirmation. So that's confirmation that she's definitely here.
Yeah.
I no way I would have known that.
So when I speak of 444...
for the ones that are watching the video version of this podcast, you would have seen Elise's reaction going, what the frick?
It's so funny. She's been very, very cheeky. Like, it's so weird, right? 'Cause she passed away so long ago, but lately she's come up. The last year and a half, she's come up more than...
Is the key on your... Is the tattoo of the key linked to your grandma?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've also got... her name tattooed on my shoulder.
To the key.
Yeah, I've got her name tattooed on my shoulder as well.
I wouldn't know that one. But yeah, so the fact that, so she's obviously here, she's talking. Is there something between her and pigs?
Not that I know of.
Okay, I'm not sure what that's about. They definitely show me the pig nose, so I don't know if that's what that's relevant for.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did she have flared nostrils at all? Can you remember what she looked like? So this is some live mediumship.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, so for those, it's hard for those that are listening, but for those watching on the YouTube podcast version, how I get shown things is what's around the room. And I'm currently being shown this little soft toy on the floor I'll bring it up. So you can see. So I'm being drawn to this.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm being, that's why it's about the pig. The pig.
Yeah.
See, where that would be relevant for me. So would she have been about, how old would she have been? She might be, so this is how abstract it can be, how they talk to us, because they talk to us through code almost.
Yeah, it is. It can be coding.
Yeah. So for me, because like the pig doesn't necessarily resonate with you straight away,
no.
I've got to take a step back and go, okay, I have to ask the question, what are you showing me?
Yeah.
What dropped into my mind's eye was my auntie, well, a great auntie actually, who used to keep a pig and then would slaughter it at the end of the year and for Christmas. And she kept a pig every year. So they show me that, and the only reference I can make that towards your grandma is probably that age.
Yeah, okay.
So, born in the early 1900s, lived, was she English?
Not that I know.
No, not English, okay.
Oh, she may have been, 'cause she was my step-grandmother, by the way. I should probably mention that. So we're not, like, blood related.
Yeah.
If it's Grandma Robin I'm talking about. I do have another grandmother that's up there as well.
No, it's the one with the bangles.
Yeah, it's Grandma. I know it's Grandmother Robin because she speaks to me a lot, and she was my best friend growing up.
Yeah. So mediumship can be challenging because it depends how they show you.
Yeah.
And if you can't quite, it sometimes does take a little bit of working out to find out what the actual message is.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. But I was definitely shown, I believe it might be my great auntie that kept the pig. And she had this little courtyard.
Okay.
So whether she's come in, maybe great auntie's here, I don't know. I can't remember her name either. Because it was that long ago and that was back in my hometown.
Yeah, wow.
And interestingly enough, she lived right near a spiritual church that I was always drawn to go into when I was about 14.
Wow. Okay.
Because I used to be a butcher boy.
Yeah.
So there's the meat reference again. Mm-hmm. So there's maybe it's my great auntie that's coming.
Maybe.
So because we're getting this meat reference when I was a butcher boy, and I used to have to cycle past this spiritual church every Saturday morning, and I was always drawn to go in, but I never had the courage to go in.
Wow.
And then years later, I obviously started going to spiritual churches because I started doing platform mediumship.
Yeah.
And stuff like
It's funny you speak about churches as well, because I, for a long time, I've been honest with my mum about this and some family members. For a long time, because of how I grew up, I was too scared to I would always call it the universe or my angels, my guides. I would never say the word God. I was too scared to say God, and I found it really hard to call it God. I don't anymore. Like, I've done a few of healing.
We can use the terminology.
But I used to struggle with that. But me now,
but then to me, the universe, God, it's the same.
Yeah, to me now, it's all one.
It's a generic term.
And I even, like, my mum gave me my old school Bible when I was a kid, and I touched it, and I was like, it's all the same now, and I see it the same.
I didn't believe in Jesus growing up, and then when I became when my healing journey really started, and he came in as a guide, and we're really close. He's pops in from time to time, and I was having really, 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 like, during my dark days, and I was thinking about suicide. I felt this energy come in, and I was like, okay, who's with me? And he says, Jesus. I'm like, okay, what are you coming in for? He says, just checking in on you. And it brought me to tears. Just brought me to tears because he was just checking in, saying, "Make sure you're all right."
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
So I was like, "Whoa!" And and I've never forgotten that. And that's probably that built that really strong bond.
Definitely.
And I still, I don't see him as that religious figure. That's if people want to see him as that. That's fine. Your journey is your journey. But for me, he was an ancient healer and an ancient manifester.
It's funny you say that because I did an ayahuasca ceremony with a shaman who turns into like an earth angel when you do a ceremony, and he noticed that I struggled saying the word God in that reference, and he asked me why, and I told him about a few of the things that I'd been through and why it was hard for me and the trauma that I'd been through, and he goes, you need to come at peace with it, he goes, because you can't believe in the universe and souls and angels and not believe in God.
Yeah.
And
we do, one of the main reasons we do that journey of restriction at a young age is if the universe allowed our guests to be fully open, especially back 15, 20 years ago, we would have ended up in mental institutes, or even being experimented on.
Yeah.
That I know. So my gifts were kept on the down low.
It's very interesting.
because the CIA actually used remote viewing. You can research this. MK Ultra, they used a lot of psychics and got them on. Used LSD to open their gifts up to see what would happen and how people would react and where they would go. And if you want to see the lighter side of that, there's a film called Men Who Stare at Goats. Recommended watching. It's mainstream. It's George Clooney and Ewan McGregor, and I think Kevin Spacey's in it, and a few other. I think Jeff Bridges is in it as well. So really big actors, and it's a kind of dark comedy, but it's well worth watching because that's basically what it's. It's talking about that and how psychics were utilised. And I read a book. A guy became a remote viewer for the army during the First Gulf War. It was a book about that. I can't remember the name of the book, but he spoke about how he got transitioned across, I think, to the CIA, and they got into remote view during the Gulf War to see where the chemical weapons were.
Yeah, wow.
So, and I've done remote viewing. It's a meditative intention. It can easily be done through practice. Yeah. Without the use of any hallucinogens. But it all depends how much you believe in yourself. Yeah. The more you believe in yourself, the more your gifts will open up.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Which that's definitely your next part.
It's my next step.
Start to really truly believe, which is why you got when we had that session together just over a couple of weeks ago, where you got that information around your heritage of the witch, of the genie, that you carry within you. So you've got all the abilities of those things at the level that you want to grow them to.
And it's funny because I had a lot of self-doubt, but when you said that to me, like I always was just like, oh, I wish I could be, powerful and this, that. And so when you said that to me, at first I remember walking away, I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then like immediately, like I see 444 grandma. I was like, okay. I need to stop ignoring this, or I would see other confirmations as well.
And a lot of gifted people are starting to come to me now, ready to open up because I've already opened up and already fully owning my gifts. I don't care who I say it to. I don't care what level they're at. I'm just being me. Yeah. And it's like if they can't handle me, they need to put on shades. I'm going to shine as bright as I can. Yeah. And if they can't handle it, they can put on shades.
Funny you say that because I was seeing your aura before and you were really quite bright at one point. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So and the more you own who you are. It's not what you do, it's who you are. All your gifts are who you are. Yeah. That's the real key part.
Yeah. And I think as well, like...
I'm not a healer, I am. It's not what I do, it's what I am.
Yeah. And I think for viewers a lot as well is don't dim your shine for other people as well. Yeah. I think I had a lot of that and like I would have been a lot earlier on, but obviously for many reasons as to why I'm not.
And we all do that journey. Yeah. So, it's okay. Yeah. And it's okay to be where you're at as well.
Yes, exactly.
We're always exactly where we're meant to be.
Yes, exactly.
But it's also good to go, right, I'm here, where next?
Yeah,
exactly. What level can I grow into next? And follow the intuitive guidance as best, as strong as your intuition is, even if it's level 1, you can still follow it. Yeah, yeah. And I reckon like mine will blossom a lot as well. Definitely. Yeah. So any words of wisdom from yourself before we end? I guess like don't deny your gifts and don't suppress them. Like everything you feel, the answers are always within, and don't deny that. I was put on the spot there. That's a beautiful message. That's a beautiful message. So yeah, don't deny how you feel. Like always trust yourself. I think it always starts with the gut, and the more that you practice it, the more that you will start to feel more gifted. And so never deny what's going on in here. You always got the answers, and if you're feeling a certain way, there's always a reason. Yeah, so, that's great. That's great. So, well, thanks everyone for listening, and thanks for watching. Normally I would say that Elise has got her own socials, but that's a future thing. You can give them the socials. After she's branded. Well, her socials will be in the description. Yeah. Both on YouTube and Spotify and the other podcasts that it gets loaded up to. I've still got issues with Apple. Yeah. I'm not sure why. I've got a rough reason. Anyway, that's irrelevant. Waffling on. So, yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thank you. And like I say, this will be out. Well, this will be the Halloween special when we're talking witches and genies. So... There we go. Red hair and all. And there you're going to see me pop on the screen. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.